verbally. So thank you everybody for attending this session. It is very, very enlightening to actually be invited to speak about fostering collaboration between academia and industry on the topic of AI. There's so much that has been said today already, and there is so much that still needs to be said. So, thank you to the session organizers for hosting this today. GirlHype is, of course, an event partner, and it brings us great pride to be able to engage in this format. So, to those who are new to the session, let me talk about what GirlHype is. GirlHype is a digital skills academy for women and girls and youth from previously disadvantaged communities. Here in South Africa, we face a huge poverty gap. There's a very, very big inequality gap. And even though the GDP is rising, it's doing so quite nominally. Now, our inequality gap is very different in that South Africa went through apartheid. And as a result, we've got a racial inequality gap where you've got the haves, which is a very, very small 10% of that society, and you've got the have nots, which is a 90% of that society. It's in recent years that we have developed something called the missing middle. Now, what is the missing middle? The missing middle is essentially the growing middle class. But why we say they're missing is because they're not able to afford the luxuries of the modern world in its entirety. But they're also not able to directly say that they are poor. And so we've got this case of we have a little bit, but we don't have enough. We have enough to not say that we have a little bit. And that is basically South Africa's economic landscape, to put it in that method. And now, of that 90%, that is the bottom half of our society, we've actually got a need to connect that society, to connect the unconnected, to create opportunities and programs for those who are going to be able to benefit from this. So, what GirlHype has done is we've created a conceptual understanding of technologies and we've curated this into a structured curriculum that includes artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, and algorithms, etc. So, from our point of view, the way that we see it is we see a skilled professional as the next gen. Now, what do I mean by a skilled professional? A skilled professional is essentially one who is able to interact with the developing innovative world, who's able to understand algorithms and data, who's able to conceptualize algorithms and data into a matrix that is inclusive of ethics, scenarios, future planning, and is able to differentiate how to effectively and more intelligently build and use these technologies and systems towards creating a better future for all. So at GirlHype, we teach innovative technologies like generative AI, natural language systems, multilingual systems, and how to create a more inclusive multilingual internet that is diverse, that is inclusive, that is actually transforming, and that has the required equity for the internet and the online space for artificial technology to grow, that is ethical, and to be able to create skilled professionals that are able to input into algorithms and data in understanding and influencing how AI helps. Now, we develop programs, and our programs provide the foundational knowledge in AI so that one can best leverage on its capabilities in order to better reach their professional goals and beyond. When we talk about women, we talk about those who are cross functional managers, they're business leaders, they're thought leaders, and they're influencers, and specifically interested in AI, as well as how it has potential to grow across industries in technical and non technical professions, as well as those looking to pursue growth in their current roles, whether it's an IT manager or a business analyst or a CIO who would like to, it's basically a professional who would like to understand how can they be successful within their organization through artificial intelligence, by seeking a foundational understanding of how AI works. And our programs run over 6 weeks at a time over the course of the year, and we cover a various range of topics. So the curriculum includes the AI ecosystem. So we look at all the history in technology that led up to AI and what AI is now in the context of the digital ecosystem. Now and then in the next 30, 60, 100 years, what does that look like? And then AI and machine learning, understanding this mechanics of three main types of machine learning. That is the supervised, the reinforcement, and unsupervised learning. The third module goes into neural networks and deep learning. And it's about understanding deep learning and how it's powering the modern approach to AI. The fourth module is on intelligent machines, which explores the concept of intelligence in machines and the impact of AI on the labor market. Then we teach the ethics of artificial intelligence, so AI, ethics, hierarchy, legal considerations, regulatory frameworks, and possible considerations for the future. Then finally, we drive AI into business and we look at how AI provides potential business opportunities for AI specific content. We've got excellent teachers, we've got an online course, we've got physical in person classes, and it's a very, very easy to learn, easy to manage, easy to conceptualize curriculum. So that's the work that we do at GirlHype. And then just to quickly go over to the topic that we were covering on this side, strengthen the gap between academic and industry. So that's a large part of where we found our role coming in. And we as an academy have done considerable research to look at how can we integrate the two very different aspects of this, we call it the triple helix model. And the reason we say that is because there is a need for university and industry to connect. And how do we do that? Well, we've got to pay special attention to the difference between the two and then look at what is hampering their working as a coherent unit. And then we've got to integrate the existing knowledge and study and finally design a model that comprises processes. So this is the method that we've used, or you can say these have been our approaches in what we call the triple helix model. Understanding the difference, understanding what is hampering the connection, and then integrating existing knowledge and study. And in that, we've got the solution. That means that there's a process, there's a roadmap. You're able to understand how all three collaboration points meet between the academia and the industry to understand basically how there can be better collaboration in artificial intelligence between industry and academia. So first and foremost, when we speak about academia, immediately the mind jumps to universities. And so I think we should start there. Universities, of course, serve industry in two ways. Number one, they provide the workforce necessary to run the industry. And number two, they also provide a breeding ground for innovative ideas to start new business ventures. And this apparently simplistic relationship is not actually as simple as it looks because of the fundamental differences between the two. First and foremost, universities as academia structures have a desire to contribute to knowledge and theory. They have a desire to contribute to research on innovation and future metrics. The industry is itself restrained by profitability. So therefore, what we have is a complete industry academia separation. They are both on two sides of the river and they are parallel. They must flow independently. And as far as science, engineering, artificial intelligence disciplines are concerned, it's very important for us to create linkages between the two sides of the river or the two parallel structures. as this is what has the potential to contribute to the betterment of both industry and academia. So, again, I think I want to bring us back to the triple helix model that I had mentioned. What is required in this? First, it's economic cooperation and development. And then, secondly, it's research and design into science and technologies. And lastly, it is about universities and research, which is also carried by state influence or organizations such that work for economic cooperation and development. It is very, very apparent we know that the world's top ranking universities are attracting funding through their projects, through their innovations, and through their research. The pharmaceutical industry is one of those that relies on the research of academia in order for it to bolster. But more and more, we're looking at the IT industry, which has started to really invest into academia. It is concluded from all that it is beneficial to spend time on students and in academia. So, what does that mean? It means that using statistical data, we can actually conclude on collaboration points between industry and academia. Look at where that data is correct, look at where that data is not correct, um, and look at where the intervention points then lie in understanding research and industry methods for ease of dissemination on knowledge as universities access real time data and taking away from this dichotomy that arises from the differences between the two. And so it's very interesting if we're going to look at understanding industry versus academia and look at collaboration points that we look at this. Secondly, we're going to have to understand ourselves in the case of the existing material. So even though AI is growing now, there have been numerous other technologies that have developed in the past recent years and in time before this. And it's about understanding how do we leverage our knowledge that is gained from that statistical, quantitative analysis to actually engage with the current data that we're sitting with. And I mean, there's obviously going to be research gaps, there's going to be consensus around other things, but it's very important for us to know how can we use the existing models to actually work together, to actually grow together, to actually talk about disseminating information and research and findings in a way that is conductive towards industry, that whatever happens, there is enough of this type of material. And now I want us to break away from traditional universities for a second, right? And I want us to look at other training institutions because we all know that there's only so much that you can learn in a university environment. There really is. There's only so much that you're going to get from a university environment. And the rest of that information, you're actually going to be getting it from other training institutions, from other training mechanisms, from your real world work experience, where you've been, who you've been around, who you've been talking to, who you networked with. So it's also so critical then to note that where these institutions exist that teach industry specific skills, they are actually filling the gap for students that would financially otherwise be out of reach. And until this industry impact is also researched, until the data is also gathered from these smaller institutions and understanding how industrial activity is actually influenced by the influence that comes from external training institutions, smaller learning academies, and the work of civil society apart from private sector. We're going to better be able to understand how to actually oppose and work towards inclusive interaction between industry inclusive growth for industry, and an inclusive interaction between academia and civil society for the betterment of growth of academia, because these institutions are also feeding into the academic framework, right? So when we see this topic, it's very easy for us to jump and say, okay, we're talking about private sector, we're talking about PwC, we're talking about Ernst and Young, we're talking about the big names, Standard Bank, Absa Barclays. No, no, no. That is only one framework for understanding. The second framework for understanding is understanding how smaller institutions are actually able to grow, develop, burgeon, bolster, and actually create an interactive, the emphasis is there, an interactive landscape. Because when there is interaction, naturally, there is collaboration. For companies, for businesses, for startups, where there is inclusive interaction, there is better growth in institutional interaction, and therefore there are tangible benefits that cannot go unrecognized in the growth of technology, entrepreneurship, coming from both governmental and educational institutions, where you're able to directly train students during internships. That is the role of these organizations that exist outside of universities, that they're able to directly train students during their internships, the governmental and education institutions. So for their over other interaction and over interactions, companies cannot get any returns of investment from this activity. And that's why they don't do it. Companies want the best talent to walk through the door at any opportune moment. They want the absolute best talent. However, campus university placement is not going to be able to provide this, and it's up to civil society, NGOs, and other educational institutions, online forums, and platforms to actually provide the education that is required into technology so that we can have a better software industry, we can have a better software engineering academia, we can have greater emphasis on IT research development, artificial intelligence research and development that is able to consider the massive collaborative efforts that are possible when the different joints of the industry are placed together. And actually, that this needs to comprise of a community. We need this to be a community. If we're going to assume that an individual will move from the foundational phase education side and then move directly into tertiary education, and after that tertiary education, they're going to jump and enter into industry, we would be fundamentally wrong because that's not how it goes. And even if you're the most successful individual, the data shows that in almost every instance of a successful candidate, there has been intervention by external learning platforms, learning societies, and other learning institutes that are able to provide the type of education that is not present within the academia. And in such a way that academia, the focus there is on empirical in many cases. It's mostly at an undergrad level, it's 100% empirically based. At undergrad level, one is not generating research. And so to assume that that type of information is immediately permeable into industry is not correct. And we have to, therefore, in this particular topic, understand that if there's going to be a collaboration between academia and private sector and industry, we're going to have to note the role of external skills and service providers within that same framework towards generating the type of individual, skilled professional that is able to enter into industry and to provide the type of return on investment that that industry needs. But that the world doesn't end on profits. Those same individuals are the ones who should be taking their knowledge to further their experience in industry to further bolster in research, in development programs, in collaboration programs, a functional next gen, a functional leadership base that is able to work towards further associating these three industries, or this, as I say, using the triple helix model. Okay, so that's just the starting point. And then, if we're going to be talking about his industry, I think I've spoke quite considerably on the universities. I've spoke on other training programs and their methods of being able to deliver into this collaboration. Now, I want to take a moment to speak about this industry, right? We're talking about industry. So, what does that mean? We're not just going to look at private sector, multinational, publicly listed companies. We're going to be looking at every single part of that industry. That means looking at our chambers of commerce, our education ministries, and our cooperatives. It means that we're going to look at the resulting purpose that exists around creating, that means the means of production, right? So the purpose of the means of production, how they are interacting with society, who they are owned by, who they are governed by, who runs and regulates these methods and mechanisms, and how then it becomes possible for us as a collaborative society to leverage on these, especially with the role of developing AI to better bolster society in collaborative efforts of research and development into artificial intelligence, into machine learning, into deep learning metrics, into data, algorithms, and data analysis. So, just on this, there has to be a very considerable, understandable method of contact between understanding how academia and industry are going to mutually collaborate with one another, right? Um, so, some methods of these that have been used in previous cases, or some um, ideas, rather, in how there has been a lack of collaboration on this front, is that these are the dominant thoughts, right, that are going around that is stopping, preventing this collaboration from taking place. First and foremost, it's that academia are using old processes, they use old methods of data collection, they've got old researchers using out of date research methodology, right? That's the thought. When we think of researchers, we're thinking of some old people sitting in an old building with a fan, right? When we think of industry, we're thinking uh, corner offices with glass doors and air conditioning. And so these are the types of thoughts that are dominating the field at the moment, especially in the IT space, especially in technology and innovations. But we can never underscore the role of research and development in the industry. Okay, so what's actually happening is that the processes that are being studied by researchers, professors, and students are the same ones that are underpinning the practices in industry. Because there is research and appropriate research methodology used, there is able to be activity within industry. And when these fields are interacting with each other in a way that is positive and connected, we understand that there cannot, therefore, be any kind of disconnect between academic researchers and industrial researchers. Because when there's a disconnect between academic practice and private sector practice, there's going to be a negative impact on our society. Disinformation, misinformation, lack of information, lack of informed decision making. And that's not just at an industry level, that's at a governmental level as well. And so it's very important that we're able to differentiate between the two for the long run, but then also to understand the impact that each makes towards growing a burgeoning artificial intelligence research and development landscape altogether. Because industry is the one that is influencing output, right? Startups are funding, investors are funding into these, government is working on these development programs as well. These programs are paying taxes, generating salaries, creating jobs. But if academia is not there to notify about the problems in our society and to create a very solid and thorough understanding of the deep entrenched methods that have been used in skilling and unskilling resource opportunities, we are not going to be at a point where we're going to be able to understand successfully how it is possible for us to grow and collaborate within the artificial intelligence and machine learning sectors successfully. And so collaboration is key, both from academia and from industry side. It should not be restricted by country. It should not be restricted by region. Exchanges between students and industry and researchers and private sector employees should be done internationally on a unified platform where information is freely accessible, freely shared, multilingual, and available to people who are of any race at any time, of any religion at any time, of any class at any time. And so we have got to make sure that these methods of communication, these methods of modality, whatever they may be, are regulated, but that they remain open and fair. Because at the end of the day, when we're going to say we need inter-country multilingual collaboration, that we need interlingual, inter-country exchanges between students and professionals, between academia on an open source, open plan forum where anyone is able to upload and download, there's going to be cross interaction. There was a point made earlier as well about the age of users on the internet, right? The age of users on the ChatGPT space, the age of users online. And that's the type of modality that exists. That although the platform, the forum is going to be a open connect, open exchange, collaborative forum, such as the internet, the open internet as we understand it, where anyone can go online. That does mean that this forum, this collaboration operates within our society. And that means that it takes from our society in order to better understand itself. So there's a need for monitoring, evaluation. There's a need for expanding this collaboration. And there are a number of things that need to be done in order to better understand how, where, and when this should be accommodated in terms of the research and development framework. Again, we have innovation on the one side of our triple helix. And on the other side is an approach that is more around the creation of an innovation friendly environment. And on the third side, we have the regulatory authority, we have the governance, we have the government environment. So for there to be collaboration, we've got to understand again our triple helix versus our triple helix, right? We've got on this side, we have collaboration methods, we have the questions that people are asking about those, and we have why that current partnership is not taking place, right? The hindrances to it and innovation. On this side, we have innovation, we have regulation, and we have practice, which is both industry and research, right? And when you put this framework together of innovation, research, and regulation, you've got an understanding that ultimately is able to work towards a facilitation of new technologies and new developments like those that are building in the artificial intelligence role now. And it will help us always to understand industry's desires in how they are actually growing the solution and how they're actually providing knowledge, more knowledge for knowledge seekers, for industry seekers, for profit seekers, for innovation seekers, right? And we cannot ever deny that whatever we do, whether it's academic, whether it's industry, whether it's chamber, whether it's council, whether it's civil society, whether it's a private education forum, that whatever work we are doing is embedded, intrinsically embedded within the framework of understanding of regulation. We have to have a very appropriate regulatory frameworks of understanding and of analysis for us to better be able to understand how we can realistically, reliably, and successfully work on collaboration between industry and academia within this research and development framework that is growing in AI, and how those can bolster and better enable, better empower, better grow, better provide opportunities for those who need it, who are in need of it. And so in order to be at this point, we have to look at the people, right? We've got a people matrix. We've got, on the one hand, we say industry. So who are we looking at? We're looking at entrepreneurs, we're looking at managers, we're looking at supervisors, we're looking at employees, we're looking at interns, we're looking at prospectives, right? Those are the people that we're looking at when we're speaking about this industry. In the different jobs across various industries, but ideally those are the subjects. If we're looking at academia, we look again and we say, okay, we're engaging with professors, we're engaging with researchers, but we're also engaging with industry professionals. We're also engaging with counselors, creative thinkers, policy writers, and regulators. And then finally, when we look at, I say it's a combined effort between student and employees, because these are the real drivers of change. They're the ones that wake up on a daily basis and move forward the topics that we need to engage, whether it's technical skills, whether it's unilateral multilingual thinking, whether it's understandings of systems and dynamics, whether it's application of training deliverables, and whether it's creation of new ideas and research methods and methodology. We work in a combined system, a three-part alliance that is able to bring together the different members, the different playing bodies, right, within our dynamic landscape. And to see how colorfully they're able to join one another, engage with one another, and develop towards a greater collaborative research and development landscape for artificial intelligence. Now, of course, there's no need for me to pitch why it should be a collaboration between the industry and academia. But why this is important is understanding how collaboration is able to bring productive changes into our society. How is this collaboration able to bring in productive changes into both sectors? So we're going to look at, first and foremost, expansion and specifications. Industry professionals, expansion, behavior, students, comprehensive outlook on professional work, as well as industry providing activities to help students strengthen innovative capabilities, and how that is actually able to grow both the employee pool but also the prospective research pool. And this data, this amalgamation is able to bring about productive changes in both sectors. Now, I'm sure you're wondering how. So let me go in and tell you. I won't leave you to think about it by yourself. First and foremost, industry professionals, skilled professionals, are able to share their expertise and work behavior with students by providing comprehensive understanding of professional work and what the industry is currently looking for and will be looking for in future years. Right. So that ability of industry to filter back into civil society, into NGO, into university, into training programs, to effectively distinguish what that industry is going to be looking for and looking like in the next few years is critically important. Number two, helping students find relevancy between theoretical and practical approaches. How is it that we're able to theoretically and practically find and implement the approaches required for the growth and development of this industry? Number three, it's because when we have a good collaboration between industry and academia in the field of research and development in AI,
I guess we lost you for a minute, Thoko, if you are available.
Uh, and meanwhile, I think it's a lot of information that so far has been passed by Loco, a lot of positive nuggets, if I may phrase it that way, on the collaboration between industry and academia and how the synergetic collaboration between these two facets could help advance artificial intelligence. She has also pointed out how the poverty divide in South Africa continues to inhibit the advancement of artificial intelligence. There being a huge gap between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots, if you may put it that way, and how her organization is helping to bridge this gap. And I think for any field to advance, I think inclusivity is really important. We cannot negate the fact that talent is not only limited to a certain facet of people, that talent is not only limited to a certain pool of people, but talent is like all over the place. And if we are all here, Garuya, for example, me through uh, we are all here, Warren, because I think someone somewhere had the incentive to invest in our education. Someone somewhere put in the time and effort towards ensuring that we become learned. And through those initiatives, we are also helping in perpetuating the next generation of artificial intelligence through actively building solutions and also building communities and societies that might help advance artificial intelligence. So we lost Thoko, I think, for a moment. My hope is that she could rejoin us anytime from now. Oh, Adams, please confirm that she's not at the backstage waiting, because I think her presentation was just coming at its climax. So if you've been following us all day, thank you so much. A huge thank you to all of you for making us have this occasion here today. It was 1,758 attendees who had signed up on LinkedIn. That's a record. Not many companies or not many people achieve that feat, and we do not take it for granted. It's through your efforts that our team here at Intelliverse and also people like Garuya, Thoko, and the rest of